Hello everyone and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Nejdet Saturyan. I'm the editor of the creative tech section here at EVN Report. My guest today was Liana Karapetyan. Liana is the director of the Hero House Angels program, a program that allows people to angel invest in Armenian startups. She's also an associate at SmartGateVC and the program manager at Armenian Startup Academy. We spoke about the Hero House Angel program and how people can get involved. We also spoke about the importance of angel investing for a startup ecosystem. And we spoke about Armenia Startup Academy, a program that allows founders to better prepare to raise their pre-seed rounds. Liana, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with a little bit of your background. How did you get involved in the investing world?
This actually happened by chance. Let me start with my educational background. My educational background is started with American University in Armenia. I graduated from AUA back in 2020. I mean, actually, just 2 years ago. And I majored in business. And then during my 4 years of undergraduate studies, I tried different things. I have some background in B2B sales, some background in digital marketing. I have some experience with the US Embassy in Armenia. So just trying different things to see what best fits my interest. And then at the end of my exchange semester in Spain, when I was already coming back and I didn't know what I want to do next, I got a message from a friend who later became a colleague at SmartGate. And she introduced me a program they were running at SmartGate called Entrepreneurial Assistance School. So this was a 10-week program when they take students or young professionals and expose them to the tech entrepreneurial environment in Armenia. And I could choose one direction to specialize on. That could be sales, could be growth marketing, could be gamification. There were very interesting directions that I could choose. And I chose product management. And as the structure of the program entailed, at the end of the program, you get employment opportunities at community companies. And I did get an offer to join a company as a product manager. But then in parallel to that, I also got an offer from SmartGate to join the team. And back then, I didn't really know what venture capital is, or I had no idea how the...
What year was this?
This was 2019.
Okay.
It was July 2019. I remember it very clearly. And so I decided to join the team just because there were lots of smart people in the team and I wanted to be with them. And since then, it's been already 3 years. I'm very happily engaged with the team, with the whole industry. And that was really a very fundamental point in my career because that really set the stone on what I wanted to do, at least in the near future in my life.
Remind me what the name of the program was called?
The name of the program is Entrepreneurial Assistance School. And actually, I also wanted to mention that we're starting the next batch in a couple of, I think, in a week or so. The applications are already closed, but if there is someone very bright, we'll still be very much happy to onboard new students or young professionals who'd like to join the program.
Is this something SmartGate does annually?
We did it annually before COVID. We didn't do it last year, but generally the trend is that we want to, because it's one mechanism to nurture the young talent in Armenia. The idea is to get young students or young professionals who want to get involved in the tech community in one way or another. Could be, as I said, could be a growth manager, growth marketer, could be a sales representative. And the goal for us is to prepare young talent to join the startups, both from the portfolio, from the startup programs we are running, or the wider community. Like the company that did an offer to me was not from our portfolio, was not from the startup programs.
It's the ecosystem in general. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the program. What type of courses do you guys go under? What type of training do you guys receive?
The Entrepreneurial Assistant Program?
Yeah.
It's different. The direction that we choose is different from year by year because before opening up the directions, we first talk to the community companies, see what are the requirements, what talent they need at this moment. And then based on the requirements, we open the directions. And then at the end of the program, during the program, we match the students with mentors. And these mentors come either from those very companies that needed the talent and also from outside expertise. And so they work together. There's a general learning plan that everyone passes through. And then there is a specific learning plan based on which direction you chose.
Right.
And then at the end of the program, we organize a small demo day, just like we do for our startup programs.
Yeah.
And during the demo day, they present some subject area that they studied or explored during the program. And then in the audience side, there are the real life employers, and they give the offers just upon the demo day.
Yeah. Is it a full-time program?
I think it takes around 15 hours or 20 hours per week. But the progress that you'll have during this program very much depends on how much commitment you give.
Right.
Like we require, I think, in my case, when I was part of this program, we required just 2 hours presence at Hero House for the group sessions or different other one-on-ones that we had with the mentors. The rest of the program is just on yourself, diving deep into different topics and then discussing those topics with the mentors. So the more time you put, the better results you'll get.
Awesome. Okay, let's get to the Hero House Angels program. Tell us a little bit about what the Hero House Angels program is.
Sure. So we started thinking about doing an angel network a bit more than a year ago. I think it was May, June last year. The idea was that every time we made an investment at SmartGate, there were some people who wanted to join the rounds, but the ticket sizes were small, and so they couldn't join the company because from the founder's perspective, they don't really want to take very small ticket sizes.
Right.
And they couldn't also invest in our fund because the same logic. We cannot accept very small ticket sizes because there's a limit on how many LPs you can have in the fund. And so in parallel to that, when we expanded to Southern California, established Hero House Glendale, naturally a community of mostly Armenians shaped around Hero House. And so among them were people who weren't very much connected to the Armenian, local Armenian tech ecosystem, but they really wanted to engage in one way or another. And so we decided to to create a community where people can get access to good deal flow, can provide capital investments, and also engage with the Armenian tech companies. Because for our angel network, it's not only about capital investments, it's also about the expertise, the network, all the resources that come with every single individual. And so we formally launched the network in November last year, some 7 months ago. At the moment, we are around 67. I think the exact number is 67 at this moment.
67 angel investors?
Yes. Some of them are seasoned angel investors, people who have done angel investing previously. They know how this whole processes work. But the majority are people who haven't done any angel investing before. Also, the thing is that we have many angel investors who are in their mid-careers. We have even younger angel investors, late 20s or early to mid-30s. People who have some capital. They're not like the most wealthy individuals, but people who have some capital and they have the interest to engage with the tech entrepreneurial environment in Armenia. We have really very senior executives, C-level executives from tech giants like Google, Amazon. We have Netflix, IBM, and others. We have serial entrepreneurs, people who are tech entrepreneurs or people from traditional business background. Very different mix of expertise. And the idea is that they get access to our portfolio companies. Whenever we make an investment at SmartGate, we then open up the opportunity to this network of individual investors. And usually they join with different ticket sizes. Could be, we put a lower limit of 10K, just to make sure that whoever joins the round, they really intend to make an investment. But the limit is not as much that if you want to make an investment but you are not super wealthy, you cannot join the network. And so people join with different ticket sizes. On the technical side, we form an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. Everyone pulls the money into this vehicle, and then that vehicle becomes an investor for the company. Let's
break down a lot of what this might mean for people who are not familiar with angel investing. So angel investors are people who typically solo investors who invest in early stage startups at the, let's say, $25,000 to $50,000 range, although it could be more. Is that sort of what you're seeing with your community of angel investors as well, in that range?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we have seen in the previous investments. There are people who join with smaller ticket sizes. As I said, we set up 10K annual requirement, and we even allow splitting this 10K between two companies, having 5K, like 50% in two companies. But mostly we see bigger checks. But those who are able to write even bigger checks, they usually prefer investing in the fund because that also gives that diversification benefit. Like you give your money to people who are specialized in managing the investment.
So when you say the fund, you mean SmartGate's fund, the fund that you guys use to go out and invest in startups. When you were talking about the vehicle that you guys have set up, does that operate in some way as a fund as well, where people are pooling their money into this vehicle and then that that is being used to invest in the startups?
Yeah, SPVs, special purpose vehicles, they're very common structure for angel network. It's not a fund per se, but it's very similar to a fund.
Okay.
The idea is that if a company ends up having 20, for example, angel investors, if they do individual investments into this company, there might be 20 different names in the company's cap table, the capitalization table that sets out who has invested in which round, how much percentage, ownership percentage they get for the investment. So in order to avoid this hassle for both investors and the founders, we just put this structure of having one vehicle. Everyone pulls the money into this vehicle, and from the founder's perspective, they just see one investor.
Right.
And we, as the Hero House Angels team, we are the intermediary.
You allocate the equity.
Yeah.
Right.
But then at the point when they already have made the investment, they become investors into the company. We'll very openly open the communication between the founders and investors. Just before that, we take the communication to us in order to save everyone's time and make the process more efficient.
Right. Okay. Since most of the startups that are in Armenia's tech ecosystem today are early stage startups still, and SmartGate specifically focuses on early stage startups, do the angel investors who invest in these companies do so on a safe or convertible note mechanism mostly?
Yes, we do SAFE.
And please explain for our listeners what that is. What is SAFE for?
Yes, so SAFE, it was introduced, I think, back in 2012 or 13 by Y Combinator. YC is the pioneering accelerator. They also have a fund and they invest in their portfolio companies. But the accelerator model, it really came from Paul Graham and Jessica. They came up with this model and now it's used very widely. So they introduced SAFE, which is a simple agreement for future equity.
Right.
So that means that at the time when you sign a SAFE, you don't still have equity in the company. You just have an agreement with the founder that stays at the point when they raise an equity round, which is usually the Series A round. Your SAFE will convert into equity at some terms depending on which SAFE you chose. There are different options. You can have a discount on the share price, or you can have a valuation cap, which means that your valuation at an equity round cannot exceed the cap that we agreed on today.
Right.
The SAFE itself just simplifies the process because otherwise you'll need to hire a lawyer, pay lots of money, which doesn't make sense at an early stage. There's a lot of uncertainty and there isn't much money from the founder's side either. So it just makes processes way more easy for both.
And it's also difficult at that very early stage to put a valuation on the startup. So the SAFE allows both the investor and the company to not yet agree on what valuation the investment is going to be made in, so that when they raise their equity round, then it's priced and they get their percentage.
That's correct.
What's the benefit for the investor of when you reach the equity round? What benefit does the early stage investor who made an investment using a SAFE get that the equity investors in the Series A don't get?
We usually do valuation cap SAFEs, and the cap that you put is usually less than the valuation, the real valuation that will happen at an equity round. What we see most of the time, you're at a better stance compared to the investor that joined at that round. That's because you take the most risk at an early stage. For us, pre-seed, I mean, we also, with our second fund, are able to make seed investments, but the sweet spot is still pre-seed, and that's the riskiest stage one could join. And that applies to the angel investors too.
Investors as well, yeah. So let's talk about how people can get involved in the Hero House Angels program. What is required in order to be an angel investor with you guys?
The only requirement is the commitment to invest 10K over 12 calendar days from the point of joining the company over 1 year. And as I said, we just put this requirement just to make sure that everyone who joins the angel network, they do intend to make an investment.
Right.
Other than that, we don't really have any requirements. For us, we just want to make a vibrant community, have value exchange happening within itself, have members who not only write checks, but also would want to engage with the founders. We have seen lots of angel investors joining the companies as mentors. We've had one case when the member joined as a formal advisor for the company. There could be cases when the angel investors start their own venture at some point, point. So it's more about the community that is shaped around Hero House as Hero House Angels. But yeah, there's also the investment component because there are, on the other side of the spectrum, there are the founders who are really fundraising and they really need the capital.
Do you need to be an accredited investor in the US in order to be a part of Hero House Angels?
Yes, and that's not a requirement from Hero House Angels. That's a requirement from the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. The reason is that the companies that we invest in, they are mostly Delaware, US incorporated, C corps, and mostly the investors are also from the US. So there's just the US regulations.
Right. Can you remind us what is required to become an accredited investor? There's an income level that you have to show, right?
I believe that's 200 annual income on your own. It's 300 along with your spouse if you are married, or you need to have 1 million worth of assets.
Right. Your net worth has to be at least $1 million.
And then there are also a couple of amendments made recently. If you have some certain investment background or so, there are certain criteria. If you meet those criteria but you don't have the financial wealth, you can still be considered an accredited investor. But the process is that it's self-accreditation. So at the point when you make an investment, you just put a check mark that you are self-accredited and the responsibilities are on your end.
Right. Okay. For people participating in this program, even though it's the Armenian startup ecosystem, it's almost like it's just like investing in American companies, right? Because like you said, they're all Delaware corporations.
Yes.
Right.
And not all of the members are Armenians. We have non-Armenians in the network too.
Okay, got it.
So for the Armenians, the motivation is very much also about supporting Armenia, the tech growth in Armenia. Yeah. But for non-Armenians, there's no factor like that. So people also very much care about what the return would be for me.
What startups can members of the community expect to be investing in? What type of startups are in your ecosystem?
Because we only share deals that SmartGate has already invested in, our portfolio companies, and the logic is that we already know these companies. We have our skin in the game. We are working with them, and only after that we share these companies with the angel investors. With this logic, the companies that we share with the angel investors, they are the companies that meet the investment phases of SmartGate, which is deep tech companies, the AI-driven. And until very recently, we were very general about the industries that we target, given that it's a deep tech solution. For now, we're getting more into computational biotech companies that are, again, using the more correct word would be tech bio. Companies that are using different AI, machine learning algorithms, computational methods to solve different problems in biology and healthcare. That's going to be a big portion, especially for our second fund. But again, we are targeting companies that are technology leaders.
If someone is a member of your network and you guys make an investment in some startup, do they automatically get notified that this startup you're able to angel invest in the startup, or how do the connections work?
Usually, sometimes there are companies that their rounds get filled very quickly, and there's just no more room for the angel investors to join in. The logic is that whenever we make an investment, the fund LPs, the limited partners who have invested in our fund, they get first access to the investments in case they want to make personal investments other than being an investor in the fund. Most of the time, there is room for the angel investors, but theoretically, it can happen that the deal doesn't get to the angel network. But mostly, as I said, it happens. So we make the investment, we share the investment with the fund LPs, and then we share the investment with the angel investors.
Okay, got it. And what's the way that you notify them of that? Is it just email?
Yeah, it's email communication. We share the company over email, and then we set up group calls, usually 3 consecutive calls, introductory call, and then the second one would be first allowing some time for investors to dive into the industry themselves, and then come with more questions. And then the third meeting for finalizing all the final questions that they may have. And then we do an internal meetup with the investors without the founders, so that everyone can share their thoughts, their concerns. We share our own perspective from the fund, why we invested in the company. And then they share their commitments. If the total size of commitments, just over words, if the total size of commitments is more than the founder would accept, it's above their minimum requirement, we open the SPV and then the legal procedures follow.
How can someone join the network today?
I'm happy to talk to anyone who is interested to know further about how this whole processes work, I'm happy to get connected over LinkedIn or email. We also have information on the website on herohouse.io. There is a form to fill in and our team connects with them. But the procedure is that anyone interested, we get on a first introductory call, just getting to know each other and sharing about. I'm always curious to know what's their background and what are their incentives on joining the network. And then I share from our end who is SmartGate if they don't know, and generally what we do in this space. And then if there is a sync, I just add them to the mailing list, and then they get notified on the future events and company introductions.
Is there a specific criteria for what you're looking for in a person who's interested in joining?
No, it's just that I want to know everyone personally, because sometimes I make relevant connections whenever there is some kind of request from a founder. They need access to a specific person or specific expertise. I just want to make sure that I know everyone in the network so that I can make the connections. But it's not that we require certain expertise or geographic area or whatever.
Got it. They don't even have to be limited to the US, right? Even though it's based in the US, I guess.
Most of the members come from the US, either LA or the Bay Area. There's a lot of very good tech expertise of Armenians in the Bay Area too, and more in the Bay Area than in LA. So most of them come from California. We have some members from East Coast, some from Europe, and very happy to mention that some from Armenia too. I'm hoping to get more angel investors from Armenia in the coming years, as we have more exits in Armenia. But yeah, there's no geographic requirement. Anyone can join.
Are there requirements for being validated as an accredited investor in the U.S. different for foreigners, for non-U.S. citizens?
I believe no. Haven't had such an issue. Everyone who met that requirement from Armenia, they could very easily invest.
So they still have to have the $200,000 income or the $1 million in assets?
I believe so. For very legal tax considerations and these requirements, they usually consult with their legal counsel. But I believe, they still need to have that requirement.
So you just mentioned something a little while ago that I'm really excited about. It's a first wave of Armenian startups that will see their exits, whether they go public or get acquired by larger companies. Almost all Armenian startups provide equity packages for their employees, especially their early employees. And when these exits happen, there's going to be a lot of capital that will come to Armenia. And a lot of people will become angel investors or will go on and start their own startups. And I think this will create a huge catalyst effect in the ecosystem. Speak a little bit about the importance of angel investing for a startup ecosystem.
Sure. Yeah. And what we're currently seeing in Armenia, that what happened in the Silicon Valley decades ago.
30 years ago, yeah.
And so as soon as we have exits in Armenia, like Service Titan, Pixart, and some of them, the early employees who will be left with millions in their bank accounts, hopefully some of them will start their own ventures, and some of them will become angel investors. Yeah. And it's important to nurture the ecosystem from within. At the moment, if we talk about not only angel investing, but the early stage investment scene in Armenia, we're able to fully cover the pre-seed rounds in Armenia. Years ago, we couldn't do that either. Yeah. Very soon, we'll be able to cover seed rounds in Armenia. We already are able to make seed investments, but the whole ecosystem is not ready yet. Right. If you are raising seed round, you still get investors from the US. And it's not necessarily bad, because with US investors, you also get access to their resources. Right. Because eventually, most of them target the US market, so you get closer to them. But if we can fill in those rounds in Armenia, it will be way quicker than we currently do. And it's important to also cultivate this culture of mentoring, angel investing, starting the company, because that's how really ecosystems grow. And in Armenia, we are really at the stage when we started the tech entrepreneurial ecosystem a few years ago, and it's like a child at the moment, and we need to pull the capital, put the expertise, put our own network, so that it can grow bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's some really exciting years ahead for Armenia startup ecosystem. Do you think you were saying that now we can completely cover the pre-seed stage with the VC firms that are in Armenia? Do you think we'll see sort of growth stage VC capital in Armenia in the coming years, or for the foreseeable future that will still only be coming from US and European markets?
I think we will in the coming years. I think the local VCs will grow over time. Like we started some 4 years ago in 2018. We're only making pre-seed. Now we're able to make seed investments. Maybe in the coming years we'll be able to make Series A investments. And it's not only about SmartGate. There are other VCs like Big Story VC, Formula VC, and others emerging. In the last year even, we had a couple of VCs in Armenia. And I think what we'll see not in the very far future is other VCs globally build presence in Armenia. And it's going to be more capital allocations in Armenia. On the other side, I think at the moment we have more capital than we have startups. So on the other side, the startup movements need to be quicker too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, let's talk about Startup Academy, which I guess would fix that problem. Tell us a little bit about what the program is and what you guys do.
Sure. So we started the Startup Academy from the very early days of starting SmartGate and Hero House. The reason was that there was a very good, strong tech talent in Armenia, but the business development side was lacking behind. Like we have tech excellence in Armenia, not business excellence.
Right.
We started this Startup Academy. Initially, we started it with funding from European Union. At the moment, we have two types of programs under Armenia Startup Academy. One is the pre-accelerator, targeting very, very early stage companies when they still have the prototype and not much traction, maybe some user base, but not really paying customers. And they need to understand who their target customers are, how they need to make this transition from technology to product to business. And so currently we are running the seventh batch of this program. And 2 years ago, we introduced the traction program, which is targeting companies at a later stage. Companies that have already built some traction, they have some user base, some paying customers. They need to get support on intensifying their growth, setting up their sales framework, their marketing framework, and getting more support on expanding in the US. So the second one is more new program. We run 2 batches, and currently we do like 1 batch of the pre-accelerator and then 1 batch for the traction for the entire year. So far, we have had 120 startups in these startup programs, and 91, I think, of them have graduated, because some of them don't graduate because we do require them to commit fully to the program and the startups they are building.
Right.
And almost 300 entrepreneurs have been involved. That was important for really opening up the different business strategies. We help them, our own team, and also very importantly, a network of experts, mostly from the US, working with the teams on a one-on-one basis or doing different group sessions. The idea was to fill in the gap of business development knowledge among the tech people who want to start their ventures.
So it's people who have strong tech backgrounds. You guys help them fill the business, I guess, the business needs that, or rather maybe sometimes the lack of business experience that they have to really build a startup.
Mm-hmm. That's mostly correct. Most of the time we are approached with founders, even if there are 2 co-founders, both of them have tech background. Sometimes one of them has business development background, but given that they mostly build deep tech companies, most of the time all of the co-founders have tech background.
Tech and science backgrounds. I'm curious, a lot of accelerators that do similar work, they will also do things like co-founder matching. Do you guys have a service like that? Or a program?
We have had not a formal program. I think it has happened that we match a co-founder, but it just happened on the spot, so to say. Right. We don't have a formal program for that.
Got it. And is this current batch of the Startup Academy already up and running?
Yes. It started, I think, 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. There are 19 companies involved. It's going to be a 3-month program. So. Okay,
Liana, and let's get to our last question. What do you hope to see for Armenia's startup ecosystem, especially in regards to angel investing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I definitely hope to see more angel investors. And I think there could be like a mindset change among angel investors and potential angel investors, because when we think about angel investors, we usually think about very wealthy individuals who have a lot of capital and who will be fine losing this capital, because as you do angel investing, you know that very likely you may lose this money. But angel investing is not only money-making mechanism. It's also about the whole process of going for this journey with the founders. And you can be an angel investors with very small ticket size. And so if you start angel investing at an earlier age rather than waiting until your late 40s, 50s to become an angel investor. And that's definitely a good thing because you get into this whole environment. And being an angel investor is not only about money. I think there are 4 pillars of being an angel investor: time, money or capital, expertise, and network. And there's different concentration for each. There are people who have a lot of money and not enough time to work with these founders. And there are people who have not as much money, but they have the network, they have some expertise, they have the time to commit and work with these founders. So if there is some concentration of these 4 pillars that you are interested into working with these founders, you can start doing angel investing from an earlier age. And even for even younger people who don't have the money to invest, but they are still interested to get into this environment, they could be scouts for angel investors. Like if you do have the network and you hustle, you know the founders, you know who is building what, and you are able to do some smart filtering and identify the potentially good opportunities, and you introduce them to the angel investors, the wealthy ones, you can also get some share of the carry, right? So if you're interested to be in this space, there is something for all. So that it's more about the culture of angel investing, which I would like to see in Armenia in the coming years.
And I think I'll just add one thing. Armenia's startup ecosystem is still so young that if you're able to just create that value for someone, like you said, you can really go a long way. Maybe in ecosystems like Silicon Valley and stuff that are so big and so mature at this point, it's harder to do that. But in Armenia, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, very much agree.
Liana, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice conversation.